I'm one of the lucky ones that's been doing what they love for most of their life. In 10 years of making games, I've explored a lot of what it means to play and to progress. Something that games do all the time, but never seem to model well against real life in the truest way. See, in games, progression can feel quite linear at times. Though even in non-linear progression games, we see this constant +1ing of a stat or moving up in gear lists, and those moments feel good to us overall. I'm an avid outdoors person. I've hiked around, camped far away, and I've honestly found myself in the hills. And I enjoy progressing in these skills, like dancing on rocks as I pushed on, leveling up as I go. Though as I get older and life throws more challenges at me, I've regressed in my health, causing me to take some steps back and not be able to do things that I could do pretty easily back in the day. Making them something I could only hope to do now as well, which is not fun. That kind of progress isn't modeled in games, as far as I see, and I think it's a bit of a shame that we don't explore that more in our development processes or in our games and our play. Not very long ago, I felt like I was +1ing quite well, but honestly, right now, quite quickly on, I feel like those numbers are sliding back down on my skill tree. While at home for the break, my family and I decided to hike the Sugarloaf. This is something I should summit every single time, forever. It's much lower than any of my home turf hills I've trained on for years, but I didn't make it up to the top of this one. My dad's in his 70s and didn't make it that much further than the car park. The winds were fierce, for sure. If he were my age, yeah, I do think he would have gone much further and harder than I did. We still had some fun though, and falling back on my years of progression, it really hurt. Well and truly hurt. You can't sit on that though, so that was the goal. Go back and get to the top of that glorified hill. I needed to progress, I needed to get back on a track, I needed to find myself again within that line and figure out where I am in that progression. How far did I slide? How far did I go back? Of course, in only true Irish fashion, it rained for the next 4 days, and during this time, my dad even wanted to have another crack at that hill. So it was decided, we're going back. As soon as the rain lifted, we were off again, and I've never seen a man so possessed and determined before. With my dad leading the charge and setting honestly a great pace, he only blew past his previous point, and it was on from there. Look, there's a reason why we don't model against backwards progression in games. It's because it tends to not be fun, and games don't tend to live over the life cycle of a human. I get that, but think about it in the RPG context. It would be interesting if your character forgot skills, could it? If they didn't do something at a certain time or they hadn't done it for a while, could they lose their potential there? These are the things I want to push on. What can we do with this type of knowledge? Can we model that against our own humanity in some capacity? Through the mud, we had a quick break, and I just had to push on from there on my own, tackle my own demons. With the 9 Divine looking down, I headed up, taking in the beauty of the landscape and dancing on rocks once more. It's weird how things feel like putting on clothes again, clothes that fit really well, but you haven't worn in like a long time. I seem to have found my potential for it once again. I made it to my previous high, and I took a second to reflect on that moment. The wind howled against the side of the hill while emotions rang, but in reality the job wasn't done. And we needed to get out of the past and move on to the present, move on to the future. Once back in this reality, I pressed on, only to realize that my first attempt was not 15 steps from the top in the first place. On the summit, there was no wind. Things were calm, like both in my head and around me. I had progressed, and I was rewarded for it with magical views of Bray Bay. Looking down from my family, I was amazed to see my dad had pushed so far, much further than I thought he would, and had progressed in his own way. I took one last look up and skipped my way to the car. I enjoyed the feeling of being closer to where I was years ago in progress. In real life, we won't progress like we do in video games, as life is a different kind of game. But we did progress that day, and we're back on a path that we previously were on, making our way non-linearly. I wonder if this is something we can model in games in interesting ways, to explore the facets of life that we engage with every day. So I put this out into the world. Progression in real life is non-linear. It's not +1ing all the time and getting new things and keeping on moving on. It's much more about looking at your goals, where you are right now and what you can achieve right now. It really has nothing to do with your past or your present, although those things factor in. But it's the now, and how can you push forward from now that really matters in the end.